Hi, hello and welcome back to F1 Challenge VB. My name is Mephisto and our journey through the history of Formula 1 continues today with the third round of the 1959 season, the Dutch Grand Prix. It was held on the 31st of May, it had 15 entries, all of them took part in the race, however, 5 ended up retiring. The race consisted of 75 laps, completed in 2 hours, 5 minutes and 26 seconds. Joe Bonnier was the fastest in qualifying and so he started from pole, Brabham qualified in second, Moss was third, Jambera fourth and Graham Hill rounded off the top 5. Joe Bonnier drove a magnificent race to win the Dutch Grand Prix, Brabham finished in second 14.2 seconds later, Gregory crossed the line in third 1 minute 23 seconds behind Bonnier, Innes Ireland finished in fourth, he was 1 lap down, and Jambera finished in fifth, he was also 1 lap down. 1 minute 36.7 was the fastest lap of the race and it was posted by Sterling Moss. We're back in the Netherlands amongst the sand dunes of Zandvoort where a lap starts off with a long run down into turn 1, a tight right hand hairpin. Next we come into a left-right chicane, followed immediately by turn 3, another hairpin, but this time it is a left-hander. After this come a series of shallow turns before we reach turn 7, a medium speed right-hander. This is once again followed by a series of shallow turns up until the penultimate corner, a medium speed right-hander. And lastly we have turn 13, a right-hand kink. One thing to note is the fact that most corners on this track are cambered, which should make navigating them a bit easier, but that is a lap around the fantastic Zandvoort circuit. Here we are in qualifying for the Dutch Grand Prix and I think the AI has finally realized its incompetence and it's trying to prevent me from doing everything because they blocked me in. However, I managed to break through their blockade and go out to start my qualifying session, so that was quite an interesting little way to start qualifying. And here we are coming around to set our first flying lap, a 146.75, which is, compared to Sterling Moss, we're very slow, so I don't know why the AI was so concerned. And I then managed to improve upon that a little bit, 144.2, and then I lost control of my car and decided that I had enough of qualifying. So that was pretty much it, but the start was quite funny, I guess. The AI trying to prevent me from qualifying, but anyway, here are the previous Dutch Grand Prix winners. We have won once here in 1953, hopefully we can do that again today. But we'll have to see as we now go take a look at the grid, and we have Jack Brabham on pole with Tony Brooks in second, Sterling Moss third, Maurice Saint-Aignan fourth, and Bruce McLaren rounding off the top 5. He's followed by Dan Gurney in 6th, Phil Hill 7th, Innes Ireland is 8th in his Lotus, Maston Gregory 9th, 10th is Harry Schell in his BRM, followed by Cliff Ellison in 11th and Joe Bonnier in 12th. Then we have Jambera in 13th, 14th is held by Olivier Gendebien, followed by Ronald Flockhart in 15th, 16th is Ian Burgess, Roy Salvadori 17th, Carroll Shelby 18th, 19th is Graham Hill, and Andy Higgs qualified in 20th, so not very good, especially since if you paid any attention, I was 15 seconds slower than Hill, so really, that was really a poor qualifying for me, but it was quite difficult to navigate around the track in the wet. But anyway, we started, that was a kind of slow start for me, I was slow to react, but we are now coming into turn 1, taking it easy, and Carroll Shelby kind of decides to brake for no reason and I hit his Aston Martin. As we come out of turn 1, we see 2 Ferraris there already out of the Dutch Grand Prix as we now come through the chicane chasing after Roy Salvadori, who is already 3 seconds up the road. That's quite impressive. As we come through turn 3 here, and there are a bunch of cars crashed again. Two Ferraris, I think I saw a Cooper there as well. And here is Roy Salvadori in the second Aston Martin. We are about to overtake him, I think. Yes, I go for the overtake on the inside there and we make it. We are now in 13th, chasing after Ian Burgess, but here we have another look at the start of the race. Again, I was a bit slow to react. lost about half a second there, but we eventually managed to catch up to everyone through turn 1 here and eventually through turn 3. And there is the bump I gave the Aston Martin driver there as we come out of turn 1 and race through the chicane. And we have a replay here of Tony Brooks, who loses control of his number 2 Ferrari. He then tries to come back around but crashes into the number 3, a car which is driven by Dan Gurney. And here we see Gurney coming through turn 1. He tries to drive, but his colleague Tony Brooks decides to turn in on him. And this is Jean Berra, who intentionally drives to the right there. There was no reason to do that. Here is Phil Hill coming around. He loses control of his car. And there we see Jean Berra actually intentionally drove into Phil Hill. He must really not like Americans. And here we see Cliff Allison losing control of the number 4 Ferrari, flips it over upside down, and he is out of the race. We saw number 11 flip a few times as well, but he landed on his wheels, for now at least. This is Ronald Flockhart, who loses control of his car, flips it upside down, and he is out of the race as well. Then we have Joe Bonnier, who pretty much does the same, loses control of his car, flips it over, and that's his Dutch Grand Prix over. And finally, and here we have Gendebien, the number 11 Ferrari, who also loses control of his car, flips it upside down, and well, obviously he is out of the race as we come through turn 2 here. Brabham lost control of his car, so we move up into 6th position, which is kind of nice. We're chasing after Maurice Trintignant, who is about 4 seconds up the road at the moment. Hopefully we can catch him eventually. And here we see Harry Schell coming through out of the chicane, loses control of the car and flips it upside down, and that's his Dutch Grand Prix over. Next we have Ireland, who comes into turn 1, loses control of his car, flips it a couple of times, and he is out of the Grand Prix as well, as we see my Porsche coming into view there. Next we have Maston Gregory losing control of his car, flips it upside down, and that's the end of his race. And finally we have Graham Hill coming through the penultimate corner, losing control, flips it upside down, just like pretty much everyone else, and he is also out of the race. Then on a little bit later on lap 2, I was trying to avoid a collision with that Cooper there. Unfortunately, I still managed to touch, and that sent me flying off onto this sand dune. And then I managed to accidentally kill my engine. However, it automatically restarted. I'm not going to question that. And so we are back in the race. We've lost a lot of time there. We are now down in 10th, and Hill has pulled a 11-second gap, but eventually we caught up and moved back up into 7th on lap 3 here, chasing after Sterling Moss, who is some 5 seconds up the road. And we see Trintignant there at the side in his Ferrari upside down, and actually no, that was someone else. Trintignant was there, but here is a replay of Trintignant actually. He comes through turn 7 here, crashes into his teammate, flips his car upside down, and he is out of the race. And now we have Bruce McLaren, who loses control, and he is out of the race as well. Next we have Sterling Moss, who comes through the penultimate corner, loses control of his car, and well, same old, it's been the same thing throughout the entire race. And this is Jack Brabham losing control of his car coming out of the chicane at the start of the race, at the start of the lap. And here I speed up the footage a bit because it's kind of hilarious what's happening. He drove over the sand dunes, and he's behind the fence, tries to get back onto the road, but well, can't really. And then he flies off the map, and that's where he'll stay for the rest of the race. He won't retire, mind you. He'll just be a bunch of laps behind everyone else. But we now move on to lap 4. We are in 4th position, chasing after Roy Salvadori, who's some 30 seconds up the road. And we now move on to lap 20, and Roy Salvadori is out of the race. I was lapped twice by him, 3rd by Ian Burgess, who is leading the race. So hopefully I can catch, there's enough time for me to catch Roy Salvadori and move past him. But here is a replay of Roy Salvadori. As you can see, there's smoke coming out of his car, so that's an engine blowout. Haven't had one of those in a long time. But that is the end of Roy Salvadori. Once again, I hope we can finish the race in such a way that we move up into 3rd, maybe. Although that won't really help us. Here we are coming around to cross the line on lap 20, at the end of lap 22. We are 3 laps behind, which means we haven't completed 90% of race distance, which means we are out of the points, unfortunately. And here we have a look at all the retirements. Oh. Well, 18 people out of 20 retired, so that wasn't a very good race. Well, actually 16 people retired and 2 didn't classify because myself and Brabham didn't complete 90% of race distance. But anyway, here are the career statistics, and this was Andy's 79th Grand Prix. His best start is from 1st, has 4 pole positions, has set 15 fastest laps, his best finishes in 1st, has completed 55 races, 47 of them in the points, has 30 wins, 4 at the Indianapolis 500, 5 in Monaco, has 6 championships under his belt, has scored a total of 326 points, has retired 24 times, has experienced 1,851 out of 2,239 laps, has 5 bronze trophies, 7 silver trophies, 30 gold trophies, and as an extension, 30 podiums. And here is a quick look at the championship standings. Andy Higgs is still in the lead with 14 points. Ian Burgess moves into 2nd with 9. Brabham 3rd, Shelby 4th, and Trintignant 5th. And the last person to score points is Phil Hill, who is currently in 9th. Whilst at the very bottom of the standings we have Harry Schell, who is in 20th. Now moving on to the constructors. Porsche are tied for pole with Maserati with 8 points, and Aston Martin are in 3rd with 6. So that was the Dutch Grand Prix. An interesting little race. Was unable to complete 90% of race distance because, well, I was lapped 3 times, and unfortunately 90% of 25 is 22.5, and that's not, I couldn't do that, so that is that. But at least someone finished the race, so there were points going in other places, which is good, I guess, for everyone else involved. Which begs the question, why was the AI trying to prevent me from qualifying, since they managed to win by a huge margin? The biggest problem through this race was the fact that the Porsche is very, very bad for corners. I could barely keep it from understeering. You really have to go very slow through corners in order to keep it on track, so that's more of a Porsche problem rather than myself, I think. But anyway, that was the Dutch Grand Prix. Interesting little race, I would say, if you can call that interesting. But anyway, our next race is the French Grand Prix. Hopefully things will go a little bit better. The French Grand Prix is one of those races that where, at least in the past, we've seen more people finish, so hopefully that will carry over to this French Grand Prix as well. But yeah, that is it for the Dutch Grand Prix and for this video. Don't forget to vote for next season's team, link is in the description. I also have a second channel where I will be playing all sorts of different games. At the moment I'm doing a playthrough of Need for Speed Underground 2, so if you're interested, there is a link in the description to that as well. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, thank you all so much for watching, and as always, stay sharp.